As a financial counselor, I often get riddles that I have to solve that are like, I only have blank amount of extra money every month. Should I put it towards my 401k or should I pay off debt? Now, I have some good news and some bad news related to that little riddle in case you're curious. I'm gonna give you the bad news first because I just assume most people always ask for the bad news first. So unfortunately, there isn't one answer that I can give in this video about how you should prioritize a financial decision like that. There's not one right answer onto how you should allocate your money because it actually depends on so many different factors. It depends on your financial situation, on your goals. It depends on who you are, like how old you are, when you want to retire, what is your risk tolerance, what is your family situation, etc. The good news is that I have a mental framework that helps simplify my finances for me, and it kind of helps me prioritize my financial decisions. Now, I can't promise that this framework is going to work for you, but in the chance that it's helpful, that's what I'm sharing in this video. So the framework is pretty simple. Basically, I want you to think about dividing your income, the money that you get, into 3 buckets. You are paying into your past, your present, and your future. The main question is, whenever you get new money coming into your life, when you get that paycheck, whenever someone pays you back something that they owe you, how much of that money do you want to be going towards past expenses? How much do you want towards your present day expenses, so your lifestyle? And how much do you want to be putting towards your future financial security? So I'm going to describe each of these buckets one by one, but more importantly, later on in the video, I'm going to share with you tips on how this framework can actually help you make smarter financial decisions. For those new here, hello, my name is Lissa Prudencio. I'm an accredited financial counselor and I am the founder of Wealth for Women of Color. I'm also the co-host of NetNet Podcast, where we talk about everything from our financial advisors worth it to our weddings worth it or our pets worth it. Check out my new podcast and let me know what you think. So, what does it mean to spend on the past? Let's talk about this past bucket that I mentioned. Now, first off, if you saw a little asterisk earlier, if you caught that on the screen, but basically, if you don't have any debts at all and you're not paying anyone from something in the past, then you don't actually have a past bucket. And that can actually work to your advantage, which we're gonna talk about later. Now, on the other hand, if you do hold debt, then conceptually, what you are doing is you're paying off a purchase or a transaction or some obligation that you actually made in the past. So you're making some money today, you're getting paid today, but when you're paying off debt, you're using some of your present day money towards something you agreed to in the past. And as we know, oftentimes debt comes with interest. So I want to first point out that having debts isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's bad depending on who you're asking and what the debt actually is. But I want to cover 3 broad types of debts, aka these past expenses, to kind of give you a feel for the broad spectrum of different types of debts that you might have. So number 1, debts that are based on necessity. So these are past expenses that for one reason or another, you didn't have the money or the income to cover it, and you felt like it was an absolute necessity for your life at that point in time. So an example of a past expense can be medical debt. A lot of times, things like unexpected medical expenses can throw off our finances. And considering how much medical expenses are, especially if you live in the United States, it can throw off your finances. Even if you have health insurance, sometimes those deductibles, those co-pays, that co-insurance can still affect your finances. And for something like health, that might have been something you had no choice but to spend money on, even if you didn't have the money, because your health is important. And making decisions to improve your health is going to benefit you today and into the future. Now, one other example of a debt based on a necessity that I see is very common is buying an automobile. So for some big purchases like this, maybe you couldn't afford to buy it outright, and it's a necessity for your life, maybe getting to and from work or to transport your family. And in that sense, you probably felt the need to finance it because it couldn't wait. So you chose to take on the debt because it was a necessity. Number two, another bucket of debts are debts that have the intent to be an investment. So sometimes we actually take on debt with the hopes that those purchases or those transactions are going to end up benefiting our life or our finances in the future. For example, student loans and mortgages. So student loans, if you took out student loans to go to college, it was probably theoretically an investment into your future with the hopes of having a better quality of life and better earning potential in the future. If you've taken out a mortgage to purchase a home, that might have been something you took on because not only is a home security and stability for most people, a lot of people approach it as a financial investment. All right, last category of debts. This is perhaps the most avoidable category. It's an area that we have the most control of, but many times we don't always prevent this. And that consists of debts that are due to poor decision making. So these debts are past expenses, past transactions, past decisions that we're still paying today. The biggest culprit here is buying things that you want, such as non-necessities, when you don't actually have the money for them. Now, in reality, it's not that black and white. There are a lot of gray areas. For example, I mentioned a car, an automobile earlier as a necessity for a lot of people, but if you choose to finance and take on debt for a luxury vehicle, instead of getting the cheapest but most dependable vehicle, then that might put you in a bigger hole of debt to get out of than it would if you went for the cheaper option. So again, even though we have these three buckets of different types of past expenses, sometimes it's not always clear where something falls. But I just wanted to kind of explain these different types of debts to you because I'm not the kind of financial professional that likes to guilt people or shame people about having debt. I just want you to be aware that regardless of what types of debt you have and what decisions in the past led to this debt, I want you to know that when you have debt, you are basically paying for something from the past. We'll come back to that later on in the video. I'll talk about some tools you can use to prevent paying too much into your past. But for now, let's move on to the next bucket in this framework, which is your present bucket. So in this framework where I said you are basically using your money towards your past, your present, or your future, I would say that for most people, this present bucket is where the bulk of your income usually goes. Now, there might be some of you who are participating in the FIRE movement who aggressively save, so maybe this is actually a smaller bucket than your future bucket, but that's beyond the scope of this video. What I want you to know in this video is your present expenses basically equate to whatever your lifestyle is. It's what you budget for on a day-to-day basis or a month-to-month basis, so any current expenses that you have right now. A lot of times people think about these current expenses as needs versus wants. Examples of needs can include your rent or your mortgage or housing costs. It can include food, transportation, utilities, healthcare, clothing. Not luxurious clothing, but you have to have something to wear on a day-to-day basis, right? Your wants, on the other hand, can include things like entertainment, eating out, buying gadgets, traveling, or anything luxury or upgraded beyond those things that you buy as necessities. So like buying more expensive but organic food instead of going to the cheaper grocery store. So like I said, when you get paid, when you get new money, a lot of your income will be used to support your present expenses. Very understandable. At the end of the day, you do have to live for today. So I'm not going to dig into this section too much because it's nothing new. I actually think when people are thinking about personal finances and trying to improve their finances, especially if you're a beginner trying to improve your money management, a lot of times what we're talking about is the present, your present bucket. All right, so let's move on to that last bucket and then I'll get into some tips on what to actually do with this information. So the future bucket is what you need to focus on and include in your money management if your goal is to achieve financial security and wealth. And if you're here watching this video, I believe that should be a goal of yours. And if it's not, we got to make that a goal of yours, because honestly, quality of life can improve once you get your financial house in order. So when you get paid, you get new money into your life, and you dedicate some of that money towards saving and investing, then that is you directly contributing to your future. Let's acknowledge that yes, investments can go wrong. You can potentially lose value in the short term, but unfortunately, there aren't many other alternatives if your goal is to build wealth and to not have to earn money for your entire life. In a sense, the more you put towards your future bucket, it's like delayed gratification. Because if you can grow your money now by saving and investing, and you benefit from the time value of money, your money simply growing in value because you allow time to do its thing through your investments, then what happens is sometime much later in life, you can theoretically elevate your lifestyle. And what that means is you'll have more money to increase your present expenses. Not your present right now, but in the future, you'll be able to improve your lifestyle and spend more. So what exactly does it mean to allocate some of your resources, some of your income to the future? It's going to be too much to cover in this one video, but to give you the examples, it would include saving money in an emergency fund, saving money for other short-term goals. The thinking is that you separate money that you're saving for something you want in the next couple of years from money that you're truly going to invest for the long term. Another example is saving in a retirement account, which is technically investing, and doing that helps you take advantage of tax advantages. And finally, investing outside of retirement, whether that is on your own with a robo-advisor or getting a human financial advisor. And that can mean investing in financial securities like the stock market and other types of financial markets, but it can also mean real estate or investing in business or exploring other types of investments that are out there. Okay, so now that you have the framework of thinking about your money in terms of using it towards the past, the present, or the future, let's talk about how does this actually translate into making good financial decisions. So here's the thing. I could make up a rule of thumb. You've probably seen a lot of them online, like 50, 30, 20, 70, 20, 10, all these rules of thumb. I could probably make one up that can sound like it will work, like 20, 60, 20. 20% of income going towards paying off debt, 60% of your income on your current lifestyle, and 20% on the future, which is saving and investing. But my problem is, and if I'm completely honest, is I have a hard time, even as a financial counselor, helping people incorporate financial rules of thumb into their money management, because it really depends on what the current state of your finances actually is, right? Like if you already have a ton of housing expenses and there's no way you can actually save 20% of your income, then you gotta rectify that and work towards that before you can actually do an actual split, like one of these rule of thumbs. So rather than try to give you a rule of thumb, my goal with this video was to give you that mental framework. It's just another tool, another framework that you can do as you try to start improving your finances. My goal with the past, present, future framework is to help you organize and prioritize how you think about your money, how you allocate it whenever new money comes in. What I want to emphasize is that many people end up focusing only on the present. If your income is tight, if inflation is crazy, if your wages are slow to increase, these are all reasons that make it hard to focus on paying off debt or saving for the future. Because if you're barely getting by right now, you're focused on right now, the present. Now, by default, pun intended, in order to avoid defaulting on your debts, meaning not paying your debts and then messing up your credit and yada, 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 people are kind of forced to allocate money towards the past. So if you have debt, my guess is you probably make it a point to make your payments, at least the minimums that are due, and you absolutely should. It's unfortunate that you have to pay off debt. In many instances, it sucks to have to pay off debt, but that's the reality for a lot of people. So the problem I see often is if you're only focused on allocating your money and your resources towards your present lifestyle and your past, your debts, it becomes this never-ending cycle where you're trying to play catch-up. You're trying to make enough money to support the lifestyle you want, plus pay off this old debt, but you might take on more debt, and then it becomes impossible to ever dedicate any money towards the future. So here's the simple strategy. If you are able to, if you have a regular income, if you have your basic needs met, then you want to try your best to allocate your resources to all three of these buckets. That is, if you have debt. Remember, if you don't have debt, you're just focused on present and future now. So I'm not going to end this video without giving you a couple of practical tips that you can take along with you, but let's talk about how to improve your finances in each of these buckets. So for past expenses, for those of you with debt, meaning you have these past obligations that you're still paying for, here are some tips, and this is no different than everything else I talk about on my channel, so make sure you check out my other videos. But number one, create a debt payoff plan. This is gonna help you accelerate getting out of debt, and once you get out of that debt, it's gonna free up money. You're not gonna have to make those debt payments anymore. And guess what? Then you can start dedicating some of that money towards both present and future. Dedicating more towards the present, you can spend a little bit more on your current lifestyle. And then you want to dedicate some of those freed up dollars towards the future, and that's going to accelerate your path towards financial security. Another thing to help you manage this past bucket is build your emergency fund. This is a cushion. It's going to help prevent you from taking on more debt in the future, primarily those debts out of necessity or even those debts due to bad decisions. You want to avoid those types of debts if you can, and an emergency fund is going to help you do that. Number three, make sure you have sufficient insurance coverages. So insurance is a risk management strategy which can help prevent you from taking on excessive amounts of debt in the chance that an accident or an emergency happens in life. Health insurance, auto insurance, renter's insurance, or homeowner's insurance. Yes, annoying to have to pay premiums on these things, but they will limit the amount you would have to pay if something happened. Okay, let's move on to some tips to manage your present and current expenses more efficiently. Number one, budget or have a spending plan. Basically, you want to just keep tabs on all of the money that comes in and all of the money that goes out. You want to make sure that every dollar spent in your life is going towards things that you actually want and that you actually need. And if it's not, then bring it back into the budget, and maybe you can dedicate it to other things in the present, or maybe more towards your past debts or your future savings and investments. All right, last bucket for the future. To allocate your resources towards financial security and building wealth, number one, pay yourself first. Make sure an amount goes to savings every time you get paid. And number two, automate your investing. So basically the same concept, but invest every time you get paid. All right, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments, did this help you look at your finances in a different way? Until next time, peace out.